Are you living in a fantasy? Hey, it's Lucas Scrobot, and you're listening to Weaver and Loom. Welcome back to Weaver and Loom. Today we're going to be talking about living in a fantasy world, living in denial. Not the Nile, but denial. Bad joke. But a few episodes ago, we began talking about happiness and the pursuit of happiness and pleasure and why happiness is so important. As if you remember from those episodes, it turns out that happiness isn't important, but what's important for us to do is to pursue wisdom. And that as we pursue wisdom, our life will fall into alignment and order, and we will find long life, true, real riches, financial riches, wealth, and true riches and happiness. That with wisdom comes happiness. But when we pursue pleasure, when we pursue the things that we think make us happy, instead, it leads us into a deep, dark pit of sorrow, depression, anxiety, fear, worry. And I don't know anyone, not a single person, who wants to live that way. Not one. And if there's someone who is deranged enough to say, actually, I like feeling depressed, it's probably because they have a lot of pain issues in their life that they need healing from. So I digress. Today, we're talking about living in denial. If you remember, we were also talking about how happiness really is so important, but it's not an external reality that is come by, or it's not a circumstance that we have, but it's a choice that we make. We can choose to be grateful. We can choose to be thankful. And it is our responsibility to ourselves and to those around us to live happy lives, to live joy-filled lives. And it's not based on circumstance, but it's based on living self-controlled lives where we're in control of our own domain, our own emotion, and our own thoughts. What we also talked about in that episode, or touched on, was the fact that living a life where we choose happiness. Because I see this, I have so many relationships and friends where in conversations with people where I see this happening, that people believe that they need to have a happy life, that they should be thankful. They believe that they should be grateful and thankful in every circumstance. And because of that, when you talk to them, it doesn't feel like you're getting the full story. It doesn't feel like you're getting the genuine self. It seems like you're getting rote answers, just kind of like those lines. Kul shay zain, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, everything's great, praise God. Nishkurak Allah fi kul hal, praise God in everything, rain or shine. Right? We get these rote answers that feel really fake and artificial. Everywhere that I go, I encounter this, where people choose to live in a fantasy world. Why they do that, there's probably many reasons, but one reason is because the pain of their life is so great. The destruction of the world around them is so severe, it's so painful, that they can't bring themselves to admit the reality of their world. And so they tell themselves that my life is perfect. They tell themselves that everything's doing great. Everything's on the up and up. I have a great life. I had a great childhood. I have a great marriage. I have great children. I have a great job. I'm happy. When really beneath the surface, probably a few layers, if you really dug into what really is happening in their life, the true circumstances, the true suffering, the true pain, you'd find that a very different reality exists beneath the surface that is being masked and covered by an illusion, by a fantasy. And oftentimes, these kinds of individuals, these people, Maybe they're turning to drugs to help and solve their problem. They're turning to media to solve their pain, to mask their pain. They're turning to relationships that are unhealthy and toxic to feed the emotional neediness within them. Maybe they turn to anger. Whatever it is that each and every one of us turns to mask the reality inside of us, it's just that. It's just a Band-Aid on a wound. And so when I talk about how happiness is a choice, what I do not mean is that we should ignore our emotions. True happiness recognizes our emotions and processes our emotions in a healthy way. Processing our emotions with whether it's a counselor, a spiritual mentor, our parents, our friends, in a healthy way where we're able to allow our feelings to breathe without burying the pain and hurt and abuse of the past, but bringing those things up to the surface and having a community of people around us speak life into that to actually address the root issues in our life and not just mask over them and say, well, hada shay maktub, hada shay, it's just what happens. It's just my destiny. It's just my lot in life. These are just the cards I was dealt. I just have to deal with it. That is an unhealthy way of looking at it. Instead, we have to deal with it. We have to come to grips with it. We have to come to terms with the pain in our life. We have to grieve that. And as we grieve that, we can come into places and spaces of healing. We can come into places of reconciliation, of reconciling our broken relationships and our pains and our wounds with one another. And it's from that place of reconciling that we become healed and whole people that are able to take responsibility for our lives and then responsibility for the issues of the world and actually be agents of change in the world. If we begin to move and try to change the world and fix the world's problems, when our world is just filled with pain and chaos, but we live under this guise that everything's perfect and we're happy and we're grateful, but we've not dealt with root issues that are crippling us, we will only perpetuate the pain that is inside of us to the world around us. Likewise, we can only perpetuate the peace and the wholeness and the life within us to the world around us. We cannot give people something that we do not have. So I want to charge and encourage you today. Maybe take out a journal and spend some time writing. But I want to charge and encourage you today. Do not live in a fantasy world. Find a counselor. Find a friend. Find someone that you know, loves, and trusts you. And begin that dialogue today of areas in your life where there's pain and brokenness. Maybe it's areas that you've hurt other people. And because of that, you're crippled in some areas of your life. Some things that you need to bring to light and say, hey, I did this. Hey, this happened. Or hey, this happened to me. And find that wholeness, find that healing, begin to go on that healing process so that you actually can live a life that's full of joy. Thank you for listening to Weaver and Loom. Please share this with someone that you know might be hurting and encourage them. Sit down and encourage them to walk into wholeness together. Don't do it by yourself. Also, if you have any questions about this episode or any of the previous episodes, I would love to hear them. You can find a link in the show notes to my website, Lucas Scrobot, where you can leave a message and ask a question, or find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, ask me a question there, and I would love to answer them here on Weaver and Loom. I'm Lucas Scrobot, and until next time, thank you for listening to Weaver and Loom, where destiny is woven.